Welcome to Bike World. I was 3 years old when I got my first bike, and it was the best day of my life, and I feel very privileged to have got into the sport that I love at such an early age. These days it's actually getting easier and easier to get into motorbikes and get kids into motorbikes. Bikes are getting cheaper, electric bikes have become a thing, so you can actually find places to ride them now without annoying the hell out of everyone. That's the best way to get a kid into bike, is get them an electric bike at an early age and get them out playing. So we have assembled 3 kind of modern electric kids bikes. We've not gone for the cheapest stuff on eBay. You can buy some real dirt cheap stuff. We've tried to keep it in bikes that are gonna take a bit of abuse and last a good few years and last on for further siblings down the line. So at the bottom end of our setup, we've got the YCF 50E. Now that is YCF are a French brand. It's basically a pit bike with the petrol engine removed and an electric motor and battery stuffed in its place. It's even still got a petrol tank and a petrol cap that don't do anything. You could probably carry water in them. The YCF is £1,299. It's got a 1.2 kilowatt motor and charge time is about 4-ish hours. You can obviously buy a second battery for it and then switch in a new battery if you want. Then moving on from the YCF, we've got the Ossit 16.0. Now the Ossit is a little bit more expensive. It's just shy of 1,800 quid. And it's a bit more of a specific bike. It's a trials bike, so it's trying to get your kid into a type of motorcycle sports. I might be biased because I grew up doing a bit of trials, but trials is a great sort of foundation for whatever motorbiking you go on to later in life. It teaches you really good balance, throttle control, ability to read grip, and all those kind of key motorcycling skills that then whatever else you end up doing, the trial stuff massively helps it. And that Ossit's the perfect way to get into it. The one we've got is a 16.0 racing. They do a smaller one, a 12.5-inch one, which is kind of for 4-5-year-old kids. So this is moving up a little bit from that. And it might only be a 0.8 of a kilowatt, so it's technically got a smaller engine than the YCF, but it's got a lot of power and a lot of drive when you turn it up, and then you can back the power right down to help you learn the bike. At the top end of our little test, we have got this beauty. I think if you found that under the Christmas tree as a 6-year-old kid, your mind would explode. That is the Ktm Sxe. It looks like a proper miniaturized KTM motocross bike. It is a phenomenal bit of kit. And again, like the Ossit, it's a more specific bike. This is designed for motocross competition, so it's less of a sort of field bike, backyard bike, play bike than the YCF. It's more designed to actually go in racing. And people do compete against the petrol bikes on these. They're not, the top flight kids aren't racing and winning on these, but these are competitive in the same races as the equivalent petrol bike, which is a big step on for electric motorcycles in general. Being more of a competition bike, the Sxe comes with some competition-focused bits. It's got proper WP suspension. It's got a really fancy lithium battery. It's a fast charge time. It's only just a little more than an hour to charge the battery. However, it comes with a competition price tag. It's $4,500 for the KTM. That, compared to 1,300 quid for the YCF, is a fair old jump. But you get what you pay for. It is an absolutely stunning bit of kit. The thing is, if we got a 6-year-old in to test any one of these bikes, they'd be well happy. Motorbikes are brilliant. If you're a 6-year-old that's into motorcycles, I'm sorry, but you're not going to go, oh, I don't want this one, I want that one. If someone gives you a bike, you're going to be absolutely peaking. So there's no point putting a kid on it. What is really important is to consider what actually happens on Christmas Day when said child is presented with the bike. The unwrapping happens, the big smile happens. Who's the first person to ride it? It's always Dad. Dad or Uncle Knobhead. Those are the 2 people that inevitably will end up doing laps and laps of the garden, probably after a few too many brandies, crashing their brains out and ultimately breaking it before the kids had a proper go on it. So with that in mind, the Bike World test isn't going to be a careful analysis of what they're like for a 6-year-old. We're going to get 2 grown-ups, a dad and an uncle, a big muddy field, and see who falls off first. Bike World, bringing you important industry testing, answering the questions that no one else has ever asked. But should be a lot of fun. We've got a really wet, muddy day. We're going to take these 3 bikes out, have a hoon around the garden, learn nothing, but hopefully entertain you all in the process. So we've got our 3 electric test bikes. We have got a proper winter's day. It's stinking, it's wet, it's cold, it's pouring with rain. There's one final ingredient. It's not just dads who are going to ride these bikes. it's always an uncle. There's always an uncle who's going to come in and have a go at them. So I'd like to introduce you all to Uncle Knobhead, also known as Carl. Is that actually what your nieces and nephews call you?
Yeah, I'm known in the family as Uncle Knobhead. Yeah, 2 nieces, 2 nephews. So, Uncle Knobhead I am.
And how many of their toys have you broken so far?
Only 1, but Mum and Dad don't know about that yet, so they might know about it now.
So we have got a legitimate destructive uncle, an idiot new dad, and 3 kids' bikes that we're going to try and destroy what was a lovely grassy garden. So, you ready?
Ready.
Look at that thing go! Yeah, I'm doing it! It's a really good little thing, the YCF, and it's definitely, for tiny kids, getting them into it, it's definitely the easiest gateway in out of the 3 bikes, but it's the one that struggles the most with the adults that it wasn't designed for, which has got to be fair enough. Cool thing though. This is where the Ossit loves to be. Hopping over rocks and doing little tricksy little trial sections. And I've got to say, for kids on that, this thing's clearly amazing, but it does a lot of this stuff with an adult on it. I weigh 12 stone. Uncle Knobhead weighs a couple stone more than that, and with both of us on it, not both at the same time, we've found it actually rides really well. It can get up steep banks, it gets up hills. Clearly you're not going to want to launch it off big stuff, but it'll carry a budding father or uncle around the garden over the kids' obstacles for long enough that there's a good chance they'll hurt themselves, and that's always good value for money. This thing, this is a proper little motocross bike. It's definitely the only one out of the 3 that is a little bit scary. Like once it gets going, you're like, I wish I had more than a pair of trainers and jeans on. It's wild. It's not actually that instant off the bottom, but once it's rolling, it rips across the field, and despite being clearly not set up for someone who weighs what I weigh, it actually still does jumps and can rip round corners and take a lot of adult abuse. If you were looking for a toy for yourself, one of these and then stiffen the suspension up would be an absolute backyard weapon. As something to buy for your kids, you know, if this doesn't get them excited about motocross, nothing will. And you know, with this you could genuinely take it to a proper motocross track and they could hammer it around all day and it was doing what it was designed to do. Whereas with the YCF, if you try and get a quick kid riding quick on a motocross track on that, you're going to find the limit of the bike very quickly. The difference is 3 grand. So if you're serious about your kid getting into bikes and racing, and you want an electric one for them to use in the garden as well, this thing is an absolute weapon. Just makes me want to pretend I'm on a motocross start and do hole shots all the time. Look at that thing He's off ahead. We have proved that you can have a hell of a lot of fun on kids' bikes, and all 3 of them have taken actually a fair bit of abuse and we've not had any problems.
No.
We've been very stupid with them, which is always good.
Good fun.
The YCF, first of all, it's the cheapest one here. It's also definitely the most accessible for a younger kid. So I had my little lad who's 2, he rode that with the stabilizers and he could use the throttle and start riding a motorbike, which is amazing. And you know, as a parent, you're stoked to see your kiddie on a motorbike, whether they're on stabilizers or not. So that's definitely the most accessible. And it's been, yeah, really good for that tiny kid to get on. The Ossit, I think, is the best value one here. That's only a bit more than the YCF. It's 1800 versus 1300. As an adult, you can ride it. You can muck around doing a bit of trials as an adult, so dad and uncle can steal it and fall off it. It's actually really capable for a kid to then go and enter a trial on, and you can do some proper riding. So for what it costs, the capabilities of that bike are really impressive. Despite the fact that it's got a smaller motor than the YCF and a lead acid battery, it actually definitely works really, really well, especially considering the money. Yeah. And then this KTM, I mean, can't get around the fact that as a toy, it's really expensive.
No.
But that is so much fun as an adult.
It's so good.
You could never get bored. What would be amazing is if we had something to race against that. Like another electric bike about the same size,
No, it's
motocrossy. Wait there. This, Uncle Knobhead, is an Aussie Mx10. This is Ossit's motocross bike. I think these are normally about £3 grand, 3-ish. Still cheaper than the KTM. Yeah. It's not in standard form the same spec as that. It doesn't have quite so fancy forks and frame. It doesn't have as big a motor. It's not that. However, this is a special one. This is my MX10, which has adult handlebars, adult suspension, and a hopped up motor. So what I've got here is a adult prepped mini bike with which to do battle. So I think we need to build ourselves a racetrack and go for mini bike honours. Go! Go! Okay, Carl, now's the money shot. Uncle Knobhead versus the Ossit. 3, 2, 1, go! Yes! There we have it, folks. Miniature bikes will turn you into an idiot. The best one to buy is whatever one you can get your hands on. Pretend it's for your nephew, pretend it's for your kids when they're at school. Get covered in mud. Perfect. Woo! Ha 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 ha!